Good morning, everyone. My name is Saitis, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to our presentation on dimensions of word meaning, a foundational topic in semantics and linguistics analysis. Language is more than just a tool for communication. It's a complex system where words carry layers of meaning shaped by context, culture, and cognition. So today, our group will explore how meaning operates at different levels through denotation, reference, sense, semantic change, and figurative transfer. Each member will guide you through a specific dimension, and at this stage, Anh Thư will begin with one of the most essential distinctions in semantics: denotation and reference.
My name is Anh Thư, and today I'm going to present a part of chapter 3, which is about the dimensions of the word meaning. In this presentation, I will focus on the two important concepts, denotation and reference. When we study semantics, we try to understand how words carry meaning. However, meaning can be seen from different angles. Some meanings are general and fixed, while others depend on the context in which we use them. That's where the distinction between denotation and reference. First of all, denotation is the ability of a word to identify all those things or objects that are collectively covered by it. For example, when we say cars are not constantly known, the word cars represents all cars in general. It's generic and independent of context, therefore it shows denotation. This meaning stays the same no matter who say it or in what situation is that. In other words, denotation is invariant and context independent. It's a stable dictionary-like meaning of the word. On the other hand, reference is the relationship that holds between a word or expression and the others it refers to. For instance, when I say that is my car, I'm referring to one specific car that belongs to me. It's specific and dependent on context, therefore it shows reference. This demonstrates that reference is variable and utterance dependent because it changes depending on who is speaking and in what situation the word is used. We also have the concept of a referring expression. Is any expression used in an utterance to refer to something or someone's clearly delimited collection of things or people is used with a particular reference in mind. For example, in the sentence, Fred hits me, the word Fred is a referring expression because the speaker had a particular person in mind. But in the sentence, there's no Fred as it addressed. Fred is not a referring expression because it doesn't refer to any real person. Finally, we need to note that some expressions are meaningful, but they don't refer to anything in reality. These include function words such as and, but, or if. Imaginary characters like Batman or Snow White, and objects that don't exist anymore. For example, the King of France is bad is a grammatically correct sentence, but since France no longer has a king, this expression has no real reference. So thank you for your listening. I'm Lang Tu, and that is my presentation on denotation and reference.
So I'm gonna talk about two fundamental concepts in semantics: sense and reference. These ideas help us understand how language conveys meaning, not just through words, but through the connection between language and the word around it. Let's begin with sense. Sense refers to the inherent meaning of a word within the language system. It's abstract, conceptual, and independent of context. When we hear the word dog, we don't think of a specific animal, we think of the general idea of four-legged, domesticated creature that barks. That's the sense of the word. It exists in our minds and the structure of the language itself. And now let's contrast that with reference. Reference is about linking language to the real world. It's the relationship between the words or phrase and the actual entity it identifies. Reference is always context independent, shaped by who is speaking, when, and where. For example, when I say my dog, I'm not talking about the general concept of dogs. I am referring to a specific dog that I own. That reference is connects the word to something concrete and real.
Hi everyone, I'm Anang. In this part, I'm going to talk about semantic change, which means the change in the meaning of words over time. Language is always developing, so the meaning of many words don't stay the same as in the past. Then we'll have two key points in this part, which are the causes and nature of semantic change. Now, let's begin with the causes, or why words' meanings change. There are four main causes. First, change in objects or concepts. When society and technology develop, old words are used for new things. For example, the word coach used to mean a horse garage, but now it means a sport trainer. The idea of carrying and guiding remained. Second, generalization or specialization of use. Sometimes a word becomes broader or narrower in meanings over time. For example, the word bird used to mean a young bird only, but later it became more general, meaning any kind of bird. This is a case of generalization. On the other hand, the word girl one meant a young person or either sex, but now it means only a female child, which is an example of specialization. Third, there are linguistic causes such as borrowing and shortening words. For example, English borrowed the word ballet from French and piano from Italian. These are cases of borrowing. Another example is shortening, when a long word becomes shorter in daily use. For example, the word advertisement is shortened to ad. And finally, psychological reasons. People's attitude or feelings can change the meaning of a word. For instance, knight, the word knight once meant servant, but later it meant a brave and a noble warrior. Next, let's look at the nature of semantic change. In other words, how meanings change. There are also four main types. To begin with, extension or generalization means a word's meaning becomes wider. Example, the word holiday from holiday to any day of rest. Next, narrowing or specialization is when the meaning becomes more limited. For example, with the word meat, from food to animal flesh only. Third, degradation happens when a word takes on a more negative meanings. For example, the word villain once meant a farmer worker, but now means a bad person. Last, elevation is the opposite. The word gets a more positive sense. For example, the word knight from servant to heroic nobleman. To sum up, the word semantic change is a natural part of how language develops. It reflects the way our society, culture, and thinking continue to evolve. That's all about my part about the change and development of meanings. Now let's move on to Gwyn, who will explain the transference of meaning.
Continuing with the presentation, my name is Chukwin, and now I'm going to talk about transference of meaning, which is one of the most interesting aspects of semantics. It refers to how words can change or extend their meaning depending on the way we use them in different contexts. I will focus on two main parts: is simile and metaphor. First of all, I will be looking at simile. A simile is a direct comparison between two different things that share a similar quality. Its way is words such as like or as. For example, he is like a tiger, mean he is very fast or fastly. She is as poor as Charles Mouse, means she is very poor. Let's come to the functions of similars. Similar are often used in poetry, storytelling, and everyday speech to make the description more colorful and emotional. I have an example. Her smile is like a sunshine. This comparison brings warmth and brightness to the listener mind. Come to the second part is metaphor. A metaphor is also a comparison, but it's implied, meaning we don't use as or like. It describes one thing as if were another, highlighting their shared quality. For example, That woman is a wit. In here, wit is the shroud domain, uh, resenting something evil or unpleasant. Why that woman is a target domain, implying that she is cruel or mean. So instead of saying she is as mean as a witch, we imply say she is a witch. That's what makes a metaphor more powerful and emotional than a simile. So metaphors are based on a similarity in shape, function, and quality. For example, we say the teeth of a shark because they look like real teeth, or the foot of the mountain to describe its the lowest part. We can also use metaphor based on a function like the key to success, or based on a color such as white for innocence. Even animal name can become metaphor. For instance, he's the old fox of the town, mean a clever or trick man. There are three main types of metaphor. The first is living metaphor are fresh and creative. And the second is further metaphors are used so often that they lose their vividness. And finally is the death metaphors are so common that we hardly notice them anymore, like the foot of the bed. This example shows that metaphors are not only part of our language but also deeply connected to the way we think. Now let's compare metaphor and simile. A metaphor makes an implicit comparison, while a simile makes an explicit comparison. This means simile clearly shows the connection using the words like or as, but metaphor don't. For example, when we say life is journal, that's a metaphor. It compares life to a journal directly. In contrast, life is like a journal. It is simile because it uses the word like. The effect is also different. Metaphors sound strong and more direct, while simile feel soft and more descriptive. So, to conclude, simile compare things direct using line or as, and metaphor do it directly to show deeper feelings and gravity. Both have made our language sound more vivid, expressive, and beautiful. That's it ends up my presentation. Now, please welcome Luan for the next part of our presentation.
Thank you, Queen, for your clear explanation about metaphor. Now I'm going to continue our presentation with metonymy and other types of semantic change. Let's begin with metonymy. Metonymy is a figure of speech in which a concept is referred to by the name of something that is associated with that thing or concept. Now let's look at some examples to understand this better. When we say, lend me your ear, we don't mean a real ear, we mean listen to me. So the word ear stands for attention. And another example is, can you give me a hand? Hands mean help or assistance, not the actual hand. There are many cases of metonymy, such as using name of a container for what's inside, a body part for ability, or materials for things made of them. I have some example. He drank the cup. Drank the cup imply the liquid in the cup, maybe the water, the tea, or the coffee. She has an ear for music. Ears mean ability to appreciate music. And all our glass is kept in the cupboard. Glass mean glassware or object made of glass. So that's metonymy, where meaning changes based on association. However, there are also other interesting ways meaning can shift. Sometimes by exaggeration, sometimes by irony, or by softening the truth. Let's move on to the next part. Other type of semantic change, including hyperbole, litos, irony, and euphemism. First, let's talk about hyperbole, a very common figure of speech. It means exaggeration. We use it when we want to express strong feeling or emphasize something more than it really is. I have an example. Thank a million, not literally a million thanks, just means thank you very much. On the other hand, sometimes we don't want to exaggerate, we want to understate things to sound more polite or modest. This is called litos. Not bad means quite good. Next, let's look at irony. This is when words are used to mean the opposite of what they actually say, often to be humorous or sarcastic. I have an interesting example. He's an excellent student with lots of F. Actually means he is a poor student. Finally, we have euphemism, which is a very gentle way to talk about something unpleasant or embarrassing. Let's look at this example. Pass away instead of die, visually challenged instead of blind.
To conclude, our presentation has shown different aspects of meanings in semantics. We discussed how words are connected to the world through denotation, reference, and how sense and reference help us understand their meanings in context. Then we explored how word meanings can change and develop over time, as well as the transference of meaning through figure of speech like smile, metaphor, metonymy. Overall semantic change reflects the nature growth of language and how it involves with our society and culture. Thank you for your attentions.